Evolution. It's a damn good idea. Most of the great scientists accept it, but still the doubts remain. Evolution is a compelling idea, but the direct evidence does seem to disprove it. Mr. Darwin! Mr. Darwin! I've been longing to meet you for so long. Come in. Sit down. I am so impressed with your book, The Origin of Species. It's such a brilliant piece of writing. So many great scientists have accepted your theory of evolution now. Yes, that's true. Your brilliant presentation of your theory in The Origin of Species has practically changed the course of scientific thinking. It's a tremendous achievement. Oh, you like the way I wrote the book? Oh, yes. You introduce your theme little by little. You tactfully remove doubts. It's wonderful writing. You've given scientists what they longed for, a way of accounting for the origin of species without God. And they've accepted it, even without evidence. Without evidence? Yes. Where's our experience of evolution? There's a steady progression of life forms in the fossil record. Well, we see a steady progression from ox carts to steam engines as well. Does that mean that ox carts evolved into steam engines? Anyway, breeders are constantly producing new varieties. Yes, new varieties, but not new species. They can't change pigeons into ostriches. That's what we see in a few short years. Nature's ability to change forms must be unlimited over huge periods. The idea that variation is only limited is as simple as some direct evidence from breeding is that variation is limited. The idea that unlimited variation is possible is really a simple assumption, but with no direct evidence. Still, you've convinced great scientists to accept your idea instead of accepting the direct evidence. Have you come to find fault with me? No. Quite the opposite. The more I see how experienced scientists accept your idea despite its faults, the more I appreciate the brilliance of your presentation. Faults? What faults are you talking about? Well, first, you presented your idea against the direct evidence of breeding. Another thing, if your idea were true, there should be innumerable intermediate forms, but we don't see these intermediate forms in the world around us, and they're missing in the fossil record as well. For example, many advanced forms of life appear suddenly with fully formed skeletons at the beginning of the Cambrian period without any trace of ancestors. And you yourself have admitted that the sudden appearance of flowering plants in the fossil record is an abominable mystery. Still is an abominable mystery. So your idea contradicts the evidence at every turn. Well, I've admitted that there are challenges to my theory, and I've dealt with them very carefully. Yes, in a very charming way. You admit the difficulties of your theory. You say that most of them don't exist, and those that do exist, they're not fatal to your theory. Yes, exactly. And you've convinced scientists to accept this even though you have no evidence for the origin of species. In fact, you don't even have a theory. No theory? What do you mean? Your principle of natural selection may eliminate less favourable biological forms, but it doesn't make new forms. It explains the survival of the fittest, but it doesn't explain the arrival of the fittest. You say yourself that these new forms must come from somewhere else. Yes, of course. But you don't say from where. So your theory actually doesn't explain the origin of species at all, and yet great scientists believe that it does. That is your brilliant genius. I really don't understand you at all. You attack my theory of evolution, you say there's no evidence for it, and then you say I'm a brilliant scientist. Are you mad or what? I didn't say you're a brilliant scientist. I said you're a brilliant writer and presenter. You see, I'm a writer myself. I want to associate with the best. You are certainly the best in your field. And what field's that? It's a completely new field called science fiction. It's a new social phenomenon. What are you talking about?
You know that just after you published The Origin of Species, Jules Verne published Journey from the Earth to the Moon and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. No doubt he was inspired by your work. These stories are based on what scientists might discover in the future. That's called science fiction.
So, what does that have to do with me?
Oh, you don't understand your own greatness. You are the original author of science fiction. Your idea of evolution also depends on what scientists might discover in the future. The validity of your idea of the origin of species depends on future scientific discoveries of how breeding and variation can produce a limitless variety of new forms, how new biological forms arise, what were the intermediate forms and missing links, what are the ancestors of the Cambrian explosion, and so on. Your idea is the seminal and ideal example of science fiction because it's actually pure imagination based on future developments in science.
Are you joking with me?
No, not at all. I admire you more than anyone else. Your glories are unsung. You have an inborn genius to convince others without their even noticing. You're the ideal storyteller. The Origin of Species is the ideal original example of science fiction because scientists have accepted it as reality. They haven't recognized that it's pure imagination inspired by science. Perhaps they never will. Mr. Darwin, I'm afraid I've irritated you. Don't worry, I'll find the door myself.
Goodbye, my hero storyteller. I still say evolution is a damned good idea.